What does it take to run for Congress as one of the first openly gay candidates in your state's history against the most anti-LGBTQ plus speaker in American history with zero corporate money? My guest today is Matt Gromlich. He's a math teacher from Louisiana and he's running to unseat Mike Johnson. This conversation is about courage, community, and what it really means to fight for people when the odds are stacked against you. This is Proud to Lead. You've chosen to do something pretty monumental, and it is
Yes, or crazy, maybe.
um, and I'm actually really inspired by it, because you are, I believe, the second LGBTQ plus person, and I believe the first openly gay man to run for Congress in Louisiana. That's a pretty wild historic feat.
Mhm.
I'm curious because you're running to unseat what many would call the most anti-LGBTQ congressman in the House at a moment in American history where it feels like there's more homophobia, more transphobia, more anti-rainbow policy than at any point in the last 30 years. And I am genuinely inspired by what I can only call like incredible courage. Honestly, what was the point where you made that decision to say, okay, I'm actually gonna get into this?
Yeah, Louisiana's history is really interesting, where, New Orleans is such, an amazing, historical, vibrant city that has, supported diversity and immigration, but Louisiana as a whole, is not all New Orleans. And, yeah, we haven't elected any LGBTQ person to Congress, uh and it might be courageous or crazy or insane to run now, but if I kind of go back to what inspired me or what was that like turning point, I have to go back to 2016. And in 2016, I was living in Las Vegas and I was a teacher. I was a high school math teacher at the time. And everybody was sure that Hillary was going to win. Hillary won the popular vote. Nevada went blue. Like we were all about it. And I was in a gay bar after class, watching the results come in. It's like, oh man, okay, like this is not going the way that we want. And then I had to go and teach the next day. And I walk in and I had tons of Hispanic students at my school, predominantly Hispanic school. And I just remember my students in class crying because even though they might be citizens, a lot of their parents weren't. And like I just remember some of my students like looking at me and saying like, what am I going to do? What if my parents aren't home when I get home today or tomorrow? And imagine being a high schooler and I'm trying to teach you like the quadratic formula and you're all you can think about is the safety and health of your family. So many of my students are like, well, like making contingency plans. If my parents are gone, then I have to take care of my 7-year-old brother. And then where do we live and what do we do? And uh, it's just not something that any person, but especially any like kid, should have to go through. And so that was my experience in 2016, 2020. In 2016, I was also involved in politics, but in 2020, I got heavily involved in politics. I worked on Elizabeth Warren's campaign, canvassing, canvassing. I phone banked, and just like really pushing and then pushing for Biden. Thought that we had gotten past everything. And then the night of the election, 2024, I was in Louisiana and just the same emotions, the same outcome, although he won the popular vote in 24. It's like, okay, now we're in this again. I thought we got past this and now we're back in that environment and it's going to be worse this time. And I knew how it was for my students in 2016 and what they were feeling and thinking. And I just like broke down and cried that night for what was going to happen. And I don't just like thought and process. I talked and I kept asking, like, who's going to do something? Like, who's stepping up? Somebody needs to. This is not okay. This is going to hurt so many different people. And after a few months, I was talking to my mom, who up until 2024 was a lifelong Republican.
Hmm.
I was talking to her, and she's like, "Matt, you keep saying somebody's stepping up. Like, why aren't you stepping up?" Like, I'd support you. Let's do it. Like, let's do it together. It's like, okay,
Mm.
let's do it. So here I am.
And can we just talk a little? Like, I want to take a pause and just say thank God and thank goodness for moms who are overwhelmingly supportive of even the craziest dreams. I mean,
Right?
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Mhm.
in Louisiana specifically,
Mhm.
November 2016, nearly 286,000 people voted in Louisiana district for its primary.
Yes.
6 weeks later, it was like half of that. And I saw
Mhm.
you posted this on Threads. That drop handed
Yes.
Mike Johnson his seat. He won with
Yes.
87,000 votes. Half the
Mhm.
voters
Mhm.
just didn't come back. What do those numbers mean for you? And what do they mean for you when you're knocking on doors in
Mhm.
Louisiana?
The numbers show that it's about turnout, that we have so many eligible voters who vote once, vote every so often, but there's a lack of consistency in voting in Louisiana that is not true in some of the other states that I've lived in. I've lived in North Carolina for a little bit, and that was, purple state. And so we got to see how politics played out. And then in Nevada, also kind of a purple state. And people were much more organized and into voting and were understanding and educated of what the voting structure was, how to vote, where to vote, when to vote. That's not as much the case here. So a lot of our campaign is just educating people about what voting means, when the votes are. I mean, Louisiana is different in so many ways. They have this year in 2026, I think it's 7 different elections, depending on which federal race, state race, school board race, special elections, runoff elections, general elections. It's just crazy, and it's very difficult to keep up with if you are a typical person working your job, having your kids. Like, how do you understand when all of these things are?
One of the things I struggled with in 2016 and 2024 was how few people voted. Like, I hear a lot of people say, like, the majority voted for this. But when I look at the majority either voted for Kamala in 2024 or just didn't vote. And so I
Mhm.
think it's like just under 60% of people did not vote for the current administration. Um, how are you getting people activated so that they do the one thing that controls the destiny of politics in their
Mhm.
area? Like, how are you getting
Right.
people activated? And like, what's the secret to doing that? Because I think it's one of the biggest frustrations I have with, like, if
Yeah.
you had just voted, the
Mhm.
world would look so much different today than it does for so
Mhm.
many people, marginalized
Mhm.
people, minorities, the LGBTQ
Mhm.
plus community, immigrants. Um, how are you getting people activated? Because it looks like the data says if you get people activated, you win. How are you doing that?
You have to give people something to vote for and something to hope for. We've seen with the data, with the past elections, you can't purely run your campaign as, "At least I'm not that person." Okay, well, you're not that person, but how do I know that you're any better? Why should I trust you? That's why a lot of people have sat out of previous elections, is that that it didn't really give them anything to hope for, or to envision what the future would be like with that person in office. Whereas my first time that I was eligible to vote was in 2008. And like, Obama gave people hope. There was a vision, there was a passion. People could see, like, when Obama gets into office, this is what the world could look like. And I think, like, Mayor P is doing a really fantastic job of just describing, here's where we could be, here's where we are, here's the gap. Do you want this? Because, like, this is possible. This future that we can envision together is very possible if we have the right people elected.
When people are asking like in this election, okay, you're not just not Mike Johnson. What is your response? How are you differentiating yourself and like giving people something to
Mhm.
hope for in
Mhm.
Louisiana? Because I gotta say, it is very hopeful that Mike Johnson could be
Right.
unseated. Like, that alone is
Yes.
really exciting, that
Yes.
idea. Um, but what is that thing that's actually going to change their lives? What is a like day-to-day kitchen table, this impacts what is in my bank account, impacts
Mhm.
my family every single morning? Like, what are those issues that you're really standing for right now?
Yeah, and I agree with you. For people outside of Louisiana, I mean, even in Louisiana, the hope is let's get Mike Johnson out. But on the ground, the hopefulness is saying, I'm an educator. My background is education. I've been a civil servant my entire career. This is my 14th year teaching. And I have these skills that I've cultivated and developed in the classroom of identifying problems, listening to people's needs, differentiating, putting the right, students into groups or the right organizations together, doing research, being able to read through, and then looking at school policy. And so all of those skills and traits and experiences transfer over very well to the political space once you're in office. Running for office and then being in office are 2 very different jobs. Uh, the running for office is less fun for me. Like, I love the research and the legislation and, like, getting down to the nitty-gritty and working things out and, like, getting things done. So, I think when people that I talk to, it's, you know, the role of the representative is to represent their community, to be a servant to the community, to understand the needs, to understand the amazing organizations that are there, the nonprofits, to understand the good that we all have, and to be able to put the right people in the right places, connect the right people with who they need to so that the entire community is lifted up. And I want everybody in my community to be happy and healthy and safe, to have a good paying job, to not be fearful that they, might lose their job or not have options, and then that to know that their children will have a good future.
How are people responding on like at the doors? Because I'll just say what the things that are most important to me and the people that I talk to. It's gas prices are way up, grocery prices are way up, taxes are way up. Our people are going to war now.
Mhm,
We aren't doing anything to preserve the health of the planet. There's so many major issues that are really concerning. Um,
mhm.
Tell me a little bit more about what your take is on some of these things.
All of those issues, the underlying impact or the underlying idea behind them is that the current people in Washington are not doing the jobs that they should be doing to help the American public because they're thinking of themselves. Like, Mike Johnson is not in district ever. Even when he is in district, he doesn't hold town halls. He doesn't door knock. Even my Democratic opponent, he's not really in district. He's not really doing much. He's going to New Orleans to get money from rich donors. And, like, people want to know that the person they're sending to Washington is actually going to work on legislation that impacts them. And we can connect on people are not doing what they're supposed to do. They should be. And so if you get the right people, then you can write legislation that looks at healthcare access and affordability. You can put the executive branch in check so that we don't go on in wars without, approval and a plan. There's just and like, people are smart. People understand that what's happening in our lives right now is because of the decisions that are made by the current administration.
I think I'm shocked at how much support this administration continues to get despite
Mhm.
all of the campaigning that they did to do the opposite of what they're doing now, whether
Yeah.
it's releasing
Yes.
the Epstein files, whether it's
Mhm.
no wars, whether it's lower taxes, lower grocery prices, lower gas prices. Like, if I look at the Trump 2.0 campaign and I look
Mhm.
at Trump 2.0
Right.
governance, it is night
Mhm.
and day.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and another thing I'm really shocked by is how much Congress has kind of given up their role as a check and
Mhm.
balance to the White
Absolutely.
House.
Yes.
Um, Tell me a little bit more about what your perspective is on how you
Mhm.
can, if you were to get elected, how you can make a difference with some of these things. I know, obviously, as a congressman, it's a limited position, but you still have the
Mhm.
ability to advocate and to legislate. What are some of the things that you plan on doing once you're in office?
Yeah, I think before that, I found it's a really interesting dichotomy in people's minds here that I've talked to. For whatever reason, they're able to separate like Trump from Congress or Mike Johnson. And you can like Trump, but a lot of people are not liking Mike Johnson.
Hmm. Why do
And
you think that
and so
is?
there's this I think to some extent it's like you voted for Trump 3 times. A lot of people you I don't know, he's larger than life figure, messianic to some people, unfortunately.
Sure.
Um, and then you can use Mike Johnson as kind of a scapegoat. So everything that's going wrong, well, they didn't tell Trump, or the Congress could have done something different. They could be involved more. And so in the conversations, there are a lot of people that I've talked to, uh, like maybe 10, 15% who are they voted for Trump. They'll probably vote for Cassidy for Senate on the Republican side, and then said they would vote for me,
Hmm.
which is a really interesting. I don't know how you wrap your brain around that, but like
Yeah.
you're able to separate fault, blame. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then, is there a path? Like, I'll just be direct. Do you think there's a realistic path to victory, and like, what is it going to take to get there? And then once you're there, you know,
Right. And then
what
what?
is the plan?
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
do we leverage that position for you to advocate for the people in Louisiana, but also to kind of fight back against
Hmm.
everything that's happening in this administration?
Yeah. I do think there's a path. This is not just a protest candidacy. There's so many no party voters in this state. There's so many people that don't vote that have given up and tapped out that we can access. And there's also a lot of Republican and conservative voters who see around them what's happening at the city and state level
Hmm.
and are able to kind of separate that in their mind like, okay, at national level, we can have a Trump administration. And I think people are willing to at least entertain changing their vote because Mike Johnson, like, you can look at his history and what he's
Yeah.
not done for the country.
Yeah.
Once you're in office, I mean, it depends on the makeup of Congress, of course, but it seems like hopefully the Democratic Party will take over at least the House, and there's definitely a path for the Senate as well, since some of these new states are in play. And it is like reclaiming the power that Mike Johnson has completely given away, where Congress is a co-equal branch. There are 3 branches of government, or there should be. Right now, there are only 2. And we really have to leverage the affordances that Congress has in the Constitution because our founders didn't want there to be a king. They didn't want the executive branch to have too much power. We're, a coalition of 50 states, and we have representatives, and those people should have, the co-equal power, power of money, and so we can use any appropriations to be able to keep the executive branch in check and to, send back money to your states. Uh, Oversight. We need more oversight to hold everybody in this administration accountable. Uh, I think there's a lot that we can do. And then what I personally would like to do is, as an educator, like my top focus areas are universal pre-K and
Mm.
providing help for families and education for our youngest and most vulnerable. And there's so many positive outcomes and aspects of that. Looking at healthcare, making sure that everybody from pre-birth to the end of your life that you have like full healthcare access and coverage. In Louisiana, there, especially in our district, the rural parts, some women it takes them to like a 2-hour drive to go to an OBGYN.
Mm.
Like you're probably not going there that often and getting the appropriate care that you need. A lot of rural hospitals are gonna be closing soon due to the changes that the current Congress has implemented, and so it's really just going in and taking a landscape survey of where are we? What do we need in our district? How can we help? And I think if you approach it that way, as I do in my classroom, you can still get other people to embrace different aspects, even if you don't align politically on everything.
Yeah. I am actually really shocked at how many Republicans I've had conversations with who are really distraught with what Trump 2.0 has turned out to be.
Hmm.
That,
Yeah.
the amount of times I've heard, like, I didn't vote for kids to be caged, kids to be deployed, kids to be sent to different
Hmm.
countries than they may originally have been a part of, or from. I didn't fight so that, or I didn't vote so that, driver's license of trans folks could be revoked and invalidated. I didn't vote so that, my right to be able to have life saving care could be revoked. Are you seeing in Louisiana, your boots on the ground? Are you seeing a lot of Republicans who are willing to vote differently because they maybe regret or are disappointed by the vote that they cast into 2024?
Yes and no. It. I think it's really difficult as humans to admit that we make a mistake or did something wrong. At the school level, you're kind of trained to get the right answer and to make the A and to you do everything right, and doing anything wrong is bad, or failing is bad. And so it's kind of trained in us in our education system and how our society is, that you want to be right all the time. So there are people who, like, internally are having those conversations with themselves of, this isn't what I voted for, or I thought it would be different. And when you talk to them, the approach can't be like, well, do you regret your vote? Because then you put people on defensive, and you're psychologically, just, you want to justify your vote. And there was a reason why people voted for what they did. So my approach is like more of a teacher perspective of, like, I know that you voted this way in the past. Like, I get it. Everybody voted the way that they thought that they should in the time that they did with the information that they had. What I'd like to talk about is how we move forward. What could the future look like? And are you willing to just entertain imagining this future together? Because then you don't have to, like, regret the past in the same way. You can, and you give them time. I mean, maybe they will at some point, but it's okay. This is what happened. Can't change it. Let's not focus on that. Let's not villainize people, even if we disagree in it, even though we know that the outcome has hurt so many people. The only way to move forward is to give people the handout and to allow them to say, whatever happened in the past, okay, I know that this is not what I want right now, and that there's a way forward.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of politics is just charisma and like
Mm.
personality and influence. I think about, like, the stars or even the rising stars within the Democratic Party. We think about Mayor Zoran Mandami. I think about AOC. I think even about Pete Buttigieg,
Mhm.
and the the things that, uh, when I think about them, I think they have, like, such an aura and such a gravitational pull towards them that Trump exudes a lot of,
Mhm.
like, you just naturally have this kind of tendency to pull forward. Do you find that, like, when I think about Mike Johnson, I don't think charisma. When I
No,
look at his
no,
press
not at all.
briefings, and when I, like,
No.
watch the news, I don't see a man
Mhm.
who I see somebody who has, been able to position himself into a place of power, but I don't see a lot of that. And so even as I was going through, like, your website and some of the things you stand for, as fighters for a future is kind of your theme. It's lowering costs for families, investing in education and childcare, putting America's tax dollars to work for Americans, strengthening communities and small businesses. What I see there is kind of this coalition of community,
Mhm.
where when I think
Yes,
about Mike Johnson, I think about a coalition of corporations. Are you
absolutely.
finding a lot of corporate pushback against your
Yes.
candidacy?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and what's
Uh,
that like?
yeah, it's pushback from corporations and from establishment all around. It's really interesting. I mean, I have, like, 0 corporate money right now. every single dollar I've raised is like either money that I put into my own campaign because I believe in it, or it's small dollar donations from people in the community or people online who see the campaign and want to be involved, uh, or my family who believes in me.
Yeah.
And like those are
Yeah.
my donors. Yeah, like zero corporate money. Nobody's even like reaching out to offer, because everybody's like, are you, how much of your money is PAC money? And like, PACs haven't even talked to me. And I've reached out to, certain organizations to try to get endorsements. And like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
And is that because of the kind of steep hill that they see in fighting kind of Mike Johnson's influence, or is that positional resistance of like we don't agree with your positions, or like where's the resistance sourced from?
definitely, I mean, a lot of, man, you're going against the Speaker of the House. Like, that's crazy. You know how many millions of dollars he has, the support. Why? And so there's a viability question that some people have, and I'm every day proving them wrong.
Hmm. In
Uh,
in what ways? Like, what are the real ways that, like, if there's somebody who's looking at this and like, okay, I
mhm,
I want Mike Johnson out, and I agree we absolutely need to fight for the future generations, and this is an
mhm.
educator who clearly has the desire to do that. What's your answer to them of like, okay, there is a viability issue here. How do you overcome that?
So I know my community. I've been teaching here. I've interacted with thousands of people, and the people in Louisiana are good people. They have good hearts. They want good things. I mean, my neighbor next door, huge MAGA fan, but like when I'm gone out of town too long, they will watch my dogs or like mow my yard if it gets too long and I've just like been too busy. Like kind people individually. But what's been happening in society because of, urban and suburban issues and flight and just in the rhetoric and how people are working and where they're working. I mean, we've become like so divided or so siloed.
Mm,
And I know the people in my community that when you talk to them, then we're good. Like, we can disagree on something, but we talk, we vibe, we have conversations like, "Okay, like, that's pretty cool. I come away and I learn something and I, like, trust you and wanna support you and I want what's best for you." And so this campaign is just talking to as many people as we can and bring this community back together, which we used to have in America and it doesn't exist in a lot of places.
yeah. I think I'm when we look at the data, like the divide has exacerbated. Like it's become
Absolutely.
more and more divisive, and it's so easy to hide behind labels, right?
Mhm,
MAGA, progressive, blue,
mhm.
red. And I think
Yep.
you brought Obama up. I think one of the things that I'm really inspired by when I think about Obama is this idea that all of those titles fade away and fade under a creed of one people, of one nation. There's no
Mhm,
red or
mhm.
blue. There's just the
Right.
United States of America. There's no, individual. We're here together. And
Mhm,
I don't know if I mean, I see that a little bit with like Zoran Mamdani, and I see that a little bit
mhm,
with like some of the kind of premature campaigning that's taking place for the next presidential election. Um, but I think I wish I saw more of that kind of language of like, hey, there is no real divide. You bleed just as much as I bleed. You want love just
mhm.
as much as I want love.
Yeah.
You want to be able to pay the bills and have a great life and enjoy vacation
Mhm,
and be able to put your kids into baseball as much as I do.
mhm.
Uh,
Exactly.
we are one people. And
Mhm,
as one people, we have shared values. And if we can build a country around those shared values, that's what's going to make a meaningful difference in creating a
mhm.
prosperous, great nation. Um,
Absolutely.
but I look at then like the what I think is the most divisive administration ever, who continues like, and not just the administration, but there's a lot of like parties and players that
Mhm.
feed off of and benefit from that division.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm. Absolutely.
I'm curious, are you seeing like a fatigue within the people as well? Because I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Like
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
wake up again to like a world like once in a lifetime thing. I as a millennial, I've had enough once in a lifetime historic events take place in my life.
Mhm, mhm.
Are you seeing that fatigue in within your district?
Yeah, people are tired. People are kinda like, they're fatigued, they're tired of fighting. And so, like, we have to fight again. Like, we've been fighting since 2016. We have to keep fighting, we have to keep fighting, and so the message and the framing has really, like, shifted in my mind from, like, fighting, but, like, creating.
Mm,
Like, fighting implies that you're against, and we do need to call out the current administration and be against the current administration, and, like, that but they're different. As us on the ground, the, normal, typical Americans, like, I wanna create a future together. So, actually, my website is, in a week and a half or so should be done and like completely rebranded and different because yeah, people are exhausted and it is exhausting to continuously be in that fight or flight mode. And I think it just yeah, what you were saying is we need to come together as one America and create this future that we all can be a part of.
are you finding any resistance around being an out gay man? I mean, especially within Louisiana, which is a very what my perception is, right? I'm in California, blue state. You know,
Hmm.
it's very friendly towards LGBTQ plus people. There are pockets,
Hmm.
but for the most part, the policies and the government, statewide and local,
Hmm.
are pretty um, friendly, if not just neutral. But when I think about Louisiana, I think it Bible Belt, red of
Hmm.
red, you know, and I
Hmm.
think it's very hostile. My perception is that it's very hostile to LGBTQ plus individuals. Are you seeing much resistance as an out gay man? And what's that like being a gay man running
Hmm.
for Congress?
Right. So definitely on the state policy level, yes, it is hostile to members of our community. They're trying to take away rights from everybody, lots of communities, but especially the trans community is being attacked all over the country in these specifically red states, or more in the red states. Uh, but it's so interesting because on the ground, again, once you start to talk to somebody, you get to know somebody. I had one of my students like super Republican, conservative, uh, and I in the classroom, I don't, like, talk about my sexuality, but I don't hide it either. It if it something comes up, then it comes up, but usually it doesn't because 'cause I'm teaching math, so it is what it is, but he was like, "Oh, yeah, I knew you that you weren't straight because you never talked about, like, your wife or partner or anything." Like, it was just, like, noticeably absent. Um and I was like, "Oh, okay, like, what do you think about that?" And he was like, "No, you're cool, you taught me how to teach math, like, we're chill." And, now is, kind of helping me out a little bit on the campaign. And so, yeah, when people get to know you as a person, a lot of the the headlines and the divisive rhetoric, like, it just fades away.
Hmm.
And what I found, we talked about my coffee shop meeting this morning, there were a lot of
Yeah.
retired people there, a lot of retired teachers. There were 3 couples, each that had an LGBTQ child who, some of them still live in state, some have moved out of state.
Hmm.
But it impacts everybody. And so there's one lady who's like, "I'm so excited that you're running. Like, my family's excited that you're running. We never thought that we would see this in Louisiana, especially up in, like, Northern Louisiana."
Hmm.
Just yeah, the feedback, I was scared. Like, you put yourself out there and what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And it I think things might get, you know, worse as we get closer to November, but so far, the reception has been fantastic.
Hmm. What would you say, like, walk me through this process? Because I think we have a lot
Mhm,
of folks in the rainbow community that watch and listen who are angry and frustrated and exhausted and want
mhm.
a fight. And I think that's probably coming from at least where my frustration comes from is not seeing a Democratic Party aggressively, taking action despite the limited,
Yeah.
positional power they have.
Yes.
Um, but like not seeing somebody just like fight. I think I saw something on Threads that said they should have somebody on uh like a live stream every single day saying this is exactly what we're doing to combat
Mhm,
against these things. This is
mhm.
the progress we've made today. And this is what they did, and this is
Yes.
our response to it. Like a state
Mhm,
of the day almost, it feels like we need
mhm,
something like that. But like a frustration, our audience feels as like there's nobody fighting. Okay, I'll fight, but like where do I even get started? Kind of break
mhm,
down what your journey was to go from like your mom saying, why don't you run
mhm,
to the point today where you're running campaign events and meeting people who are saying, thank God you're running. Thank goodness
mhm.
you're
Yeah.
in the race.
My mom was a huge person. My partner, like, had to talk to him about everything, make sure he was on board, and then, one of my former students,
So
I
wait,
have
let
some.
me let me go back to that. What was that
Yes.
conversation like? Hey, babe, I'm gonna run
Hey,
against Mike Johnson. The guy who
yeah.
said the most anti-LGBTQ plus stuff. I'm gonna run against that guy. What was that like?
Yeah, like, I know that when we got together, I was a college professor, and now I would really like to do this. Uh, I mean, supportive and also, "Okay, well, let's get a few more cameras, like, let's beef up our security, like, let's be safer, protect ourselves." Um, but also I think I don't know, you get to know the community, you get to know the people, and I found it in my life that if you are authentically you and genuine, that people feel that, they understand that, and, there are gonna be people that, like, automatically write me off because of my sexuality. That is going to happen, but I wasn't gonna get their votes anyway because I also have a D next to my name. So, like, if you're gonna write me off because of that, other than that, though, like, yeah, the reception has been great, and like, way more than I even anticipated. The community has rallied around just in such a positive way, and it inspires me because we have an administration who's attacking us all the time at every angle and trying to beat us down and trying to say that we don't matter and that nobody cares about us and it's better if we're not here. And then when I, make this decision, then my community says, "No, we need you here. We're glad you're here, and we're so excited for this." So it's the administration, it's the 1%, it's the elites, it's like them keeping us apart, it's keeping us down. The community is ready.
Are you meeting other LGBTQ plus people in your district that
Mhm.
are like, oh, I've never. I know you mentioned like a mom at one point, but other LGBTQ plus, like, what is the rainbow community's reaction and response so far?
I I mean, the general reaction is like, "Oh, you're running against Mike Johnson. That's crazy."
Yeah.
After that, no, I mean, super supportive. I had an event at the gay club here in Shreveport a few weeks ago and hung out with some drag queens, which was great, and I don't know, like, it's everybody is supportive so far.
So you have a Democratic primary,
I
or you
do.
have a primary taking place,
Mhm.
and you're running against another Democrat. What
Yes.
makes you unique or different, or the person to
Mhm.
run in general election?
Yeah, so my opponent is the Democratic establishment candidate, even though they try to brand themselves differently. That, got the Democratic endorsement. They're part of the system, and I think people are tired of the system. Like, you're gonna swap out Mike Johnson for another establishment candidate. Like, yes, anybody's better than Mike Johnson, and we don't want just better than Mike Johnson.
Mm,
We want somebody who is in the community, who understands what it means to be a community member, to devote their life to service because being a representative is a service position or should be,
mm.
and somebody that is accessible. So, what I'm showing in my community is that I'm available for you to interact with. Mike Johnson isn't, and my opponent isn't really. I'm here. I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing TikTok lives. I'm doing my coffee shop tour, and so my team and I were finalizing everything. But our the goal is, as long as people will have us and we can find a coffee shop, is one in each of the 20 parishes that are a part of the district
Really
between
cool.
now and May 16th.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I want to put you in a hypothetical situation. You are in a room with Mike Johnson. Um, what are the things that you would say to him if you were here right now that you're hearing from the people, the complaints you're hearing from real people? Like,
Mhm.
what are the things that they're saying?
Yeah. So Mike Johnson's from here. A lot of my colleagues went to high school with him. A lot of people that I know him, and they like saw him grow up. And what I've heard from people is that in high school and when he was younger, he was a good person and empathetic and caring, and he was class president and people voted for him. And when he first got into office in 2016, people were excited because this is somebody that and you want to prop them up. So I think what I would tell Mike Johnson if he were here or if I meet him is like the people that you grew up with, they expected something, like you're disappointing them.
I read a recent headline that he's having a hard time with his coalition, like rallying
Mhm.
Republicans,
Yeah.
specifically around like the DHS bill that didn't have the votes. You know, yeah, there's a clear struggle to govern and also give Trump what he is
Mhm.
asking for. Um,
Mhm.
Recently, I just read today Trump's proposing another $1.5 trillion in defense budget spending, which is going to cut deep into like domestic spending. That
Mhm.
includes universal pre-K, that includes funding
Mhm.
for education, that includes healthcare. Um,
Mhm.
you know, uh, uh, what do you say to people right now who are looking at this and just feel really helpless? Like, there's all of these big decisions
Mhm.
that are taking place. Like, what are you saying to people who feel like it's inevitable or it's hopeless?
If we don't make any changes, then it's gonna continue to feel that way. So we know how we feel now, and it makes sense to feel hopeless and to think that there's nothing else. Uh,
Yeah.
and we have to believe in something. We have to have hope. You can see the community mobilize. You can see, like, you talk to people, they're even if you're kind of dejected, there's still like buzz
Hmm.
that Americans are fighters. Like we've been here for a while. We've fought through a lot of things, and like that spirit is still here. And so I don't know. I think we can energize it.
Yeah. When I think about like the lowest I was personally, in regards to my how I viewed our political situation. I think about 2016 when, um, you know, Hillary lost. And
Mhm.
the very next day I wore all black. I was like depressed. It was the worst feeling in the world. And then the relief I felt. I remember finding out because it wasn't determined the day of the election. There was like a,
No,
a
it was
little
like
bit of
5
time
days
after.
later.
Yeah, and I remember
Mhm.
the anxiety I
Yep.
felt
Yes.
all every
Mhm.
minute of every second of those 5
Mhm.
days for 2020
Yep.
and the relief I felt.
Yes.
And then I remember the like the utter confusion, but also like the relief when Biden dropped out and then Kamala kind of took the reins and then like the hope, like there was a
Mhm.
lot of what I felt like really positive optimistic energy around Kamala, and we were very big supporters of Kamala, and
Of
then
course.
the absolute devastation again, like there was
Mhm.
this emotional whirlwind that took place in 2024. And I remember kind of the way I justified it was shocking to me in 2016, but it wasn't surprising to me in 2024 because that is
Mm.
from what I felt. It was at the time, it was like, well, that's what America is. America
Mm.
systemically has
Mhm.
always
Yep.
voted in power people who
Mhm.
I think just don't deserve the power, don't, aren't using the power to benefit everybody. Um, when we think about the system that is propping up America today, I see a
Mhm,
system that is not equal, is
mhm,
not
mhm,
equal in position or opportunity. Like
mhm,
it is not free for all people,
mhm,
within our country. And so it wasn't very surprising to me. And I can sense within the electorate, like there's a world after Trump that I'm like looking at. And I don't know, is the I think a big concern that I have is Trump 2.0 is setting up concrete on a system that was already dysfunctional. That is going to be
mhm.
so hard to wade through, even post Trump's presidency. I think about
Yes.
Project 2025. I think about, Peter Thiel. I think about Heritage Foundation. I think about Vance
Mhm,
and,
mhm, mhm.
all of these people who
Who
are
just are, like,
cementing their
allies.
power, right? And
Yeah.
and all of their allies. Is is there a world where we can go back to the optimism that I felt and you felt, and the optimism for that short time we felt before the
Right.
2024 election? Like, is there optimism to be had? Like, that's realistic and grounded in, like, okay, the world can be better, and it's not as cemented as maybe it feels like it is.
I think it's really difficult to predict what post-Trump looks like. He's just been a figure for so long. He's loomed so heavy, and he's had such a profound impact on every single aspect of American society. It's insane that one person has had that much impact. And I
And
think
yeah,
that
and when we think about Trump, it's been 10 years.
10 years,
10 years,
10
like
years.
11 years since he came down that escalator, like 10 years of this
Mhm.
burden.
Yes. Yeah, and so I think it's really difficult to imagine what is after Trump because he's loomed so large in our society, and especially if you think about the kids that have come up in the era of Trump, like, that's all they know. So, yeah, difficult to predict what comes next. I think the optimism, like, we have to have optimism. I don't know, I feel like I'm a fairly optimistic person in overall. Uh, it I think it depends on who kinda takes the mantle of the Republican Party, what that looks like, which faction ends up winning, and then how the Democratic Party responds. And we can't, as a Democratic Party, say, "Well, we're just gonna go back to pre-Trump." We can't ignore the impact that he has had. We have to accept that he did have impact, accept that that's who America was for 10 years, and then figure out, like, what we wanna be moving forward. But there isn't a, "Oh, well, let's just go back to life how it was in, 2014."
Yeah. Okay, I have a couple of headlines I want to throw at you before we close. The first is the Supreme Court's ruling recently, 8 to
Mhm,
1, striking down conversion therapy bans.
mhm,
It just dropped Tuesday. And
mm,
this ruling is going to impact 20 states with similar laws. And so it's going to be
mhm,
a very wide sweeping ruling. The Trevor Project study found that young people who reported going through conversion therapy
mhm.
were more than twice as likely
Yes.
to have reported attempting suicide and having
Mhm.
multiple attempts compared to those who had not. This is personal to me as a survivor of conversion therapy support groups
Well,
run by Exodus International and their
mm,
allies
mm,
back when. And so Mike Johnson was a big supporter and is a big supporter of conversion therapy. He supported before becoming a congressman, he supported work that
mhm,
criminalized gay sex, that criminalized
mhm,
that supported conversion therapy.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I'm curious, as a gay man, what does this ruling mean for you? And are you hearing much from those in Louisiana about this ruling?
It's terrible. We already know that the LGBTQ population does have a higher risk of suicide, that we're, impacted, that, like, youth especially trans youth, like there it's just where there's already so much that we have to deal with, and allowing conversion therapy, again, there's just so much regression that's happened in the last year, 10 years, but like year. It's crazy, and I mean, it is so harmful and impactful for our children, our communities. Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah. Speaking about trans and children, in 42 states there have been anti-trans legislation that's
Mhm,
being considered.
mhm,
42 states, that's wild.
mhm,
Federally there's legislation being considered and being
mhm,
drafted.
mhm,
Education and healthcare bills make up about half of all
mhm,
bills
mhm,
that are
mhm,
considered. And so I'm curious for you, you're a teacher, you're interacting
mhm,
with
mhm,
students all day, every day. What do you
mhm.
say to trans students right now who are concerned and afraid that their way of life is being dismantled, who they are is being erased, and the visibility that they once felt
Mhm.
free to express is being kind of ripped from them at a policy level?
Yeah, I mean, that's accurate. Like, be you sh unfortunately, like, you should be afraid, you should be upset, you like, the current administration is trying to make us not exist. That is what's happening. We can't deny that they're trying to remove us, eliminate us, make us disappear. And I think that's why it's all the more important for anybody who has the opportunity, the platform, the ability to be visible to do so. And that's not everybody, and not every there's situations where you can't, but I'm so proud of a lot of people in my community here, and especially the trans community here in rural Louisiana, who've made themselves even more visible in this process, knowing that there are potential repercussions. But it is scary. It's hard, and I don't know what you tell somebody, because you can't say like, this isn't who we are. This is who we are right now. You can't say that it's gonna get better right away, because it's not gonna get better right away. I'm hope that it will get better at some point, but it'll be at least another year until we get some semblance of, power away from the current administration, and at least another 2 years after that before we have the opportunity to get into the executive branch. Like, to some extent, it's, hold on, be safe. I don't know. It's so tough.
Yeah, it is really tough because there's the desire to fight, and then there's also a desire to be safe and
Yes,
protect
and you have
yourself.
you have to protect yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in Kansas right now. I think in airports, I think there was a report that ICE had the right to remove you, as they were, within airports if they suspected you to be trans, or if your
Mhm,
if your license or your ID didn't match, your at birth assigned sex. And so, that's so scary to think somebody couldn't
mhm.
travel, somebody can't
Yeah.
drive, there's this whole, you know, purposefully
Mhm,
designed agenda to
mhm,
erase LGBTQ plus, specifically trans
mhm,
folks,
mhm,
um, right now. My last headline for you is the EEOC is now refusing to enforce federal workplace protections for transgender workers. They're
mhm,
dismissing ongoing cases. They're halting payments to state and local civil rights agencies for investigating claims tied to discrimination on the basis of gender identity. If you win this seat, what is the first piece of LGBTQ plus legislation that you push for? How do you support this community, knowing that there has been a systemic dismantling
mhm.
of nearly every protection this community has had?
We have to codify protections for our community, and so we need people, regardless of gender expression, sexuality, they codify into law that these are protected groups, and that you can't discriminate in the workforce against them, and that they have like equal protections under the law. It is so necessary. Also, on the healthcare side, that we include gender affirming care for our healthcare policies. And it requires like strong legislators to actually write legislation, vote on legislation, and put into law to protect our marginalized communities.
If there was one thing you would tell somebody who's on the fence, they don't know who they're going to vote for, they don't like Mike Johnson, they're open to other candidates, what is the final word of persuasion that you would give someone to say, yes, I'm the right person to vote for, and it's worth voting for me?
I'm the right person to vote for because I care about this community. I want everybody in my community to be happy, healthy, safe, to have a good job, and to have a future for themselves and their children that they can be proud of. And I hope that you want the same thing. And then let's talk about it.
So when is the election taking place? When can people vote?
Yeah, so the primary election is May 16th, with early voting starting May 2nd to 9th. And this is a very different election in Louisiana than we've had in the past. Previously, it was jungle primaries. Now we have closed party primaries. And because of that, this is the first time that we have a May election that's statewide. A lot of people don't know that there is a May election that's coming up. And another change that the state made is that anybody that was registered as independent, they've taken away that label and you are now no party. And if you're
Hmm.
no party, then you can actually vote on May 16th for either the Democrat ballot or on the Republican ballot. So you just go into the polling place, and if you're no party, then they'll ask you which one that you want to have. So the misinformation currently, or what I'm hearing from a lot of people, is if you're no party, you can't vote. You absolutely can vote on May 16th or early vote. You just can't vote for like me and then Cassidy on the Republican side. You have to pick one ballot and stick on that ballot. Um, so that's really important. And then also 2 days ago, the state of Louisiana purged voting records. And so 500,000 people were put on inactive status.
Wow.
And one person I know voted in the 24 election and is on inactive status. So everybody in Louisiana, go on either Secretary of State's website or the Go Vote app, which is a great app, and check and see when you go to my voter information, it will be like green active or I think red inactive. Check because they're like trying to purge as many people as they can. I don't think there's a real like rhyme or reason as to who they're purging. And you have to
And
like
so
get all of that
if
figured out soon.
if you're inactive, what do you do? How do you become active again? Do you have to like re-register?
I believe you just go on the Secretary of State's website and there's a way to like petition to become active again.
Got it.
But
Okay. We'll
mhm,
include all of the details in the show notes to make sure that if you're in Louisiana, you have the right to vote, you can vote, you have the information you need to make a confident vote. So
mhm,
check out the description below. Use the Go Vote app. That
mhm.
will give you some up to date information. It's almost as if they want to stop people from voting, you know?
What? Crazy.
So,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
silly.
let's make sure that you have the ability to vote and uh, go check your status, and you can vote if you're an independent. You can vote
Right.
in the May
Yes.
election.
No
So
no
make sure
party,
you show
yes.
up.
Mhm,
Make sure you show
mhm.
up.
Yes.
Matt, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
As you know, I'm on a mission to expand what it means to be LGBTQ plus in leadership positions. One way you can help is by subscribing to this channel. By subscribing, you make our content more visible and get it in front of the right people. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Proud to lead.
Proud to Lead is produced by Next Step Social and Podcasting. Thank you to everyone who made this episode possible. For more information, visit nextstepsocial.com/proudtolead.
Lay